I think legacy media is purely entertainment now. I think there's very, very few actual reporters, especially on TV news.
And the fact that they had stories that often were like 30 seconds maximum and maybe extended to 2 minutes if they had like an interview is like insane to me. Like news I thought was you're supposed to learn, not just get like a little headline. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Discourse Debrief. I am Peyton.
I'm Logan.
And I'm Abby.
And we have special guest once again, Ted McLoof.
Hello.
And we will get to introducing him and our topic soon. But first, we're going to have Abby introduce our topic for the day.
Our topic?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Event.
I just woke up. My bad. I meant our upcoming event and final event for this semester.
Yes. So the UA Discourse Series is having a debate on December 2nd at 7 p.m. Stay tuned for location information. And the question is?
So it's the future of university, and the specific question we're going to be under is the university meant to expand students' minds or students' wallets?
Me and Logan are going to be debating together, I think.
Yes.
And then against Aylin and Avery, who are other interns, and they have their own podcast as well.
Yes, no need to argue.
Yes.
It's the two podcasts against each other.
Head to head.
And Peyton may moderate.
And Ted may moderate. We're
TBD.
figuring it out. But yeah, thank you for that. And I didn't mention, this is episode 8, which is crazy. We're over halfway through now, which is, big milestone.
We've talked a lot.
Yeah, that's what we do. But today we're going to talk about talking.
This is season 3 or 2? What do you guys call it?
Season 3.
Okay, you call the semester seasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Yes. But today we're going to talk about talking. And I believe I heard from you this idea, so I'll let you kind of introduce.
So I guess I'll start with some background. When we did our first real episode on political violence, we kind of had a conversation with all of us of like, what's the best way we can actually talk about, controversial topics moving forward, specifically as like public speakers, if you want to call us that. So I guess the question that I wanted to raise for all of us, and Ted, you've been around the neck of the woods a bit longer, is just how can we as students, as people, as voters, as a society as a whole, how can we talk about controversial things in a way that is the most productive? And I guess whoever wants to take the first stab at that, whoever has their own opinion, and okay, I can start.
Go for it.
So like in general, I guess I'll start with kind of the government itself. I really don't like how politicians have resorted to, however, whatever the degree of validity it may be, we won't get into that, like the Nazi calling, the fascism outcrying. I don't like that that's kind of where we've gone to as far as our political rhetoric. I would much prefer, like in a debate, say, this is my policy, this is how it'll benefit, this is why it'll work, this is how we'll actually be able to afford it, etc. Rather than just like, oh, you like hate women and like you did this and said this. So that's my broad overview. And then hopefully that will kind of, channel down to the actual individuals.
And it might be like kind of obvious, but just like for clarity, I want you to state it anyways. Why is that the rhetoric you want to see, just strictly policy based? Why is that important to you?
I think the role of our government is to, do policy and not just like say outlandish things and, attract media attention. So yeah, I want them to actually govern. I don't want them to be, performers.
Can I ask a question of all three of you, just sort of jumping off of that? Mm-hmm. When we hear, and it's kind of a general question and maybe doesn't account for every single politician, but when we hear politicians sometimes use that language of, we're looking at an existential threat from the other side, things like that, to what degree do you three feel that they're being genuine, that they believe that that's true, versus that they know that rhetoric is going to hold a lot of purchase in the pathos of voters' minds?
I think it kind of two true answers are there, right?
It's going to depend on the politician, obviously, but more often than not, what do you think is the case?
I think maybe like for the individual politician, it's more so like kind of to gain support, to rally emotions, that kind of thing. But as this kind of pattern on both sides across the spectrum has kind of accelerated, I feel like more and more people are genuinely believing it, such that it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, to where like the amount of people that are genuinely concerned that, the other side poses an existential threat has increased, such that I feel like I'm worried that potentially enough people are believing there's an existential threat that exists that one just kind of magically exists, and it's kind of like a cycle, I guess. But specifically to the politicians, I imagine it's more of a rhetorical tool rather than an actual belief.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the same way. I think that politicians initially just do it to, get a rise out of people, to get support. Because with the rise of social media, it's become a really important tool that like politicians use to like reach a mass audience and these like sort of subgroups on the internet with their words. And I think though, as time has gone on, obviously it depends on the politician, but I think they're starting to kind of believe. I think if you say something enough, you start to believe it yourself,
For sure.
even if it's a lie.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap. So like on the one hand, I think politicians say it purely as political strategy. They might actually believe what they're saying, but if they do, that's like a secondary motivation. But on the other hand, I do think people at least believe what they say is true, and maybe as an objective stance, maybe it is true. But that's kind of a complex question. So I don't think it's really cut and dry of like, oh, they're saying it just for votes versus they're saying it because it's true. I think that it's kind of somewhere in the middle between the two.
Follow-up question, and we'll get to social media in just a second because obviously that's it's a whole thing, its own kind of
Oh yeah, I have a lot
Frankenstein's
to
monster.
say about that.
But when we're talking about legacy media, just follow-up question to that, kind of same thing. When they're reporting on things that politicians say that are pretty incendiary, and especially current legacy media that tends to also sort of dig in on one side or the other, to what degree do you feel that they actually genuinely are sort of shocked by the thing that the politician said and go, oh my gosh, this deserves attention because we have to make sure that we're reporting on it like Edward R. Murrow style, and versus to what degree do you think like that was pretty incendiary, that's going to get us a lot of viewers?
Hot take, maybe not, probably not hot take actually. I think legacy media is purely entertainment now. I think there's very, very few actual reporters, especially on TV news. So I don't think they really care about what's being said. They just want the views, they want the clicks, they want the kind of, again, the outlandish reactions, so people, keep watching. I don't think they actually care.
So you don't think that they actually have, like the reporters or whoever it is that's making those calls has a genuine ideology where they're like, we must use our organization to push back against the...
I mean, I think that it's really hard to separate your kind of own political ideology and belief from like your initial reaction, because I feel like, reporters are people too, and they have their own ideas about certain topics. And so I think that when they hear something like that, if they do feel very passionately about that and they have a say in whatever station they're reporting on or whatnot, I think that they could definitely use that passion to create like an episode or a showing of that, talking about it. So I don't know.
I think that's probably true outside of the 24-hour news networks. I think
Sure. I mean like on like
journalists
late night
who really know what
talk
they're...
show.
Yeah.
Oh, like journalists?
Local news, I think.
Yeah.
Local news definitely is more like actual reporting. But
Yeah,
I
or
would
print
say-
media.
it's less bias. I mean, I'd hope so.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Sorry, Peyton, you're going to...
No, yeah, you're good. I've been thinking about it, and for me, it's almost like it's difficult for me to separate my own political ideology from how I interpret different news stations. I mean, like, overall, I think it is just a general rule that all legacy media, especially the big ones, no matter what side, are a little sensationalist, if not very sensationalist. But like individual reporter reactions, like on a given side that I tend to agree with a little more, I can empathize with a little more and probably say are more, I don't know, grounded. But either way, like the whole apparatus of legacy media is like, I was watching it on my vacation. They had like CBS News, which I had never seen before, was not very familiar with, where they leaned or not. And the fact that they had stories that often were like 30 seconds maximum and maybe extended to 2 minutes if they had like an interview is like insane to me. Like news, I thought was you're supposed to learn, not just get like a little headline. And that was coming from CBS. So I can only imagine the likes of Fox or CNN, but
I think, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's it.
I think that's an interesting segue, turning more to like a viewer's perspective. So like us is like, why do we think kind of the rhetorical strategies that politicians and the media uses, why does it work so well? And I'll give an example. During the campaign, like I think it was like Tim Walz said, like, the Trumps, the Republicans, they're just kind of weird. And for whatever reason, that like caught fire in like the media sphere. And I personally, I don't really know why. It's just like, it was more of an offhand comment. So as a question to everyone, why does that rhetoric work so well with viewers?
No, go ahead.
I want to hear as an author, I want to hear from you.
Right up Ted's alley.
Well,
So.
it's totally, and Abby knows this because Abby was in my class, and I don't know
Yes.
how well you remember. We talk a lot in my class about these two competing media theories, and I'd love to hear all of your opinions on which one, because everyone in class always goes, I don't know, isn't it a little bit of both? And they're contradictory theories, so it can't really be a little bit of both.
Sure.
Maybe one's happening at different times or whatever, but there's a predominant one, right? So there's the uses and gratification theory, and that basically is suggesting that it's basically confirmation bias, right? We have our own value systems as people, as viewers. We get our value systems from the people, the communities we're surrounded by, whatever. And then based on those value systems, we're going to choose the media that we choose. We're going to choose to believe what we believe based on that, right? So we're going to, gravitate more toward, Fox News if we're conservative, MSNBC if we're liberal, whatever. And it's going to just confirm what it is, that belief system. And then the opposing theory is the cultivation theory. And the cultivation theory suggests that we don't have our own value systems. We're all blank slates. Anything that you've ever thought or felt or said, you have not thought or felt or said any of those things. You've been conditioned to think and feel and say those things by the media that you're surrounding by. So you don't actually choose the media based on your value system. You're delivered your value system by the media that you're exposed to, right? So to your question, it depends on which one of those theories that you believe in, right?
I'll give a simple framework of what I think happens.
Do those make sense, the way I broke them down?
Can you repeat the names
You
really
know,
quick?
Oh, I
because
know.
you spent an entire semester
Cultivation
talking about
I
theory,
know.
and then like confirmation
And
bias.
Okay.
uses and gratification and cultivation theory.
Okay.
So I think for most people, it starts off as cultivation theory. They are fed information that kind of creates their value system, and then it transforms into the first one, which was
Uses and gratification.
uses and
But
gratification.
then isn't it just cultivation theory the whole time?
Right, because if they got that value system from the media in the first place, then they're just continuing the cycle, right? They don't actually believe those things. in
Well,
other
I
words.
guess in my mind, they get the value system that they cultivate from the media, and then they just consume media that basically confirms that cultivation of, ideology.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm uses and gratification pilled.
Of course
Okay.
you are.
But you were
Little
going to speak.
optimist.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I am going to be a little pessimistic. I think it's cultivation theory recently. Actually, for quite a while, I wrote a paper on trad wives, and
I still use it in my class though. So.
I'm flattered. But yeah, no, I talk about how even Disney princesses, way back when, pushed the idea of trad wives, and which are traditional wives that stay at home. Anyway, not what we're talking about. But no, I think that the media, because it's so integrated into society, has such a profound effect on what you believe because of what you consume. And I think we're going to start to see that a lot more because younger generations are having access to social media and technology way earlier than we ever did. And I know that social media has definitely had an effect on what I believe, as much as I don't want it to. It does.
It's inescapable.
Yeah, because my phone I carry it with me everywhere. It's literally with me everywhere. And I think it's hard to escape being affected by the internet and social media.
But social media is a really interesting factor in the war between those two theories. Because social media, with the exception, obviously, of people like influencers,
Right.
social media is media created by average consumers.
Right.
And therefore, it's not like corporations who are pushing a certain sort of message or agenda.
Well-
It's just randos who are
Sorry,
able to-
real quick, I do want to hear Peyton's reasoning.
Yeah,
for-
sir.
Oh, sure. And maybe, of course, a little optimist, but I think back to when I first started consuming political content on YouTube, I think probably on like any media ever. And what I actually first started watching was like the Steven Crowder Changed My Mind videos. And I didn't have a very ironed out like political affiliation. I was like broadly socially left leaning, but like didn't care otherwise. And I found those videos really entertaining. I don't remember how they were recommended to me. And I even found some of the points initially engaging without having done much research myself, but nonetheless they were entertaining. But then after I like told my friends like, hey, I watched this video, it was pretty entertaining. They were like, yeah, it is entertaining, but he's like, we don't like him. And I'm like, oh, why not? Blah, 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 blah. And I feel like I went on to tailor how I consumed media, what I sought after, based off of how my friends, how my community kind of shaped my beliefs. And it feels cyclical, but I do think at the end of the day, your algorithm will be a reflection of how you have been shaped by your environment, not the media itself shaping the environment, even though it definitely has interplay.
I want to push back on that a little bit because, Logan, you grew up in like rural Montana,
Yes.
right? But yet your viewpoint is different than kind of everyone you grew up with. So do you think social media played a role in that, or like the internet?
Yeah.
So then that would be not kind of opposite of what you said, Peyton, where your environment didn't necessarily shape.
Well,
Although-
my answer would be that the environment was such that he didn't feel connected to the beliefs of his community or whatever, and so he went to a tool in his environment, which was the internet.
Okay.
So
And
the
actually-
environment kind of guided him towards the media.
I will say, I think what kind of initially led me down that path was taking, and we talked about this in my AJ debate, the government and history classes that I was taking kind of led me to those
Okay.
algorithmic rabbit holes.
Interesting.
To say the least. But I know you had kind of a question that we were wanting to get to.
Or also, how do you respond
yeah,
to
that
that?
too.
Oh, I was just pointing at social media when Abby brought up social media.
Yes.
That's a
Gotcha.
it's a whole new sort of factor in
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Because generally the way that I always describe it in class is that either the media is in control or the consumer is in control, depending on which one of those. But because consumers are in a lot of ways in control of what gets put on social media, to a degree, obviously there are restrictions on that, but more so than legacy media, right? That I think is kind of like an interesting curveball.
Yeah.
I had another question I want to get to, but I feel like we're on a roll now. So you go ahead. You kind of kicked off this. New
I
train of thought.
have like more of a personal question
Yeah.
come along this. Whatever sort of political beliefs you subscribe to, do you maintain those beliefs because you find them to be, given the facts, as true as possible, or because you, I guess, align yourself more with the personalities associated with that ideology? Or maybe both, and like kind of which is the more dominant?
What was the first option?
So like because you find the belief system that ideology has to be like as close to objectively true as possible, like given the circumstances.
Sure.
Versus you like the kind of personalities associated with the ideology.
Sure.
I think for me it's a little bit of both, if I'm being honest. Like I feel like the political belief system that I have, I believe it to be true in my heart. But then also like I just like surrounding myself with people that also have kind of a similar viewpoint to me. Like I feel like I fit in with that group of people.
Interesting.
So I don't know if necessarily like I take up the same personality traits as those people, but I just seem to be drawn more towards people that also have like the same political belief system as me. And that's not necessarily why I'm friends with them. It's just like we find out later on that we have the same political beliefs. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting that we are friends and that I like kind of want to be around. I don't know.
Kind of interesting follow-up, and then we'll get to the others. You say you don't really know their beliefs, but you kind of find that out afterwards, based on just like, for lack of a better word, the vibe they give off. Can you kind of tell?
Sometimes yes, but sometimes no.
Okay.
Like, especially when I moved to Texas, you kind of just assume certain things about people of Texas, which you shouldn't. But yeah, no, I just feel like I couldn't really tell for most people, and that wasn't the whole reason why I was being friends with them in the first place. Like I just liked spending time with them, and I liked hanging out with them. And then the election came around, you found out what their political beliefs were, and I wasn't surprised because it just made sense with I don't know, like my patterns of history patterns in the past for me in friendships, but yeah.
And then kind of your answer to the previous question.
Definitely the first. I feel as though, and I don't want to like put myself on a special horse or anything. I imagine most people do this too, but at least when I really started exploring like politics, it came through my exploration of philosophy, which came at a time where I was very isolated and had very unique like thought patterns and conclusions, but they ended up aligning with a lot of people on the left. However, I tend to vastly disagree with a lot of, especially further left, reasonings for their conclusions and how we should go about, changing things. I tend to vastly disagree, and I don't align very heavily with many, popular political pundits at all. And again, I think I can empathize with Abby in that I've made a lot of friends whom I later find out tend to align with me. But I think that, especially nowadays, that my kind of ideology is a little more hardened as I've grown a little more. The new people I meet don't necessarily influence those beliefs as much. Whereas maybe early on, in high school when I didn't know quite as much, we were all kind of learning things about ourselves and the world together, which kind of helped shape my beliefs. But especially nowadays, it's definitely, I think I have a coherent ideology that is largely independent of most popular pundits.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, Abby, you said it right, that I grew up kind of surrounded by people that don't think the same way that I do now. So from a personality standpoint, I guess I have two answers. As far as politicians, it's not that there's personalities that I vibe with. It's that there's personalities that I distinctly do not vibe with, and then I kind of I move towards the opposite end of those. And then obviously the first option, I do hold my beliefs to be as close to valid as I think they can ever be. Obviously there will always be exceptions, and I'll learn more as I get older. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my general
I think it's hard to be told that you're wrong. As people, we don't ever want to hear that you're wrong. So I think everyone kind of believes that what they think is true for the most part.
That and in politics, right and wrong is just kind of this nebulous idea.
Well, yeah, because you can't really ever determine what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, but Ted, I want to hear your answer as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because that question to me sounds like just kind of a different way of asking about those two media theories, right? Because if you find yourself sort of nodding along with a certain political ideology because you find it to be objectively true, that sounds a lot like uses and gratification to me, because it's confirming your value system and your beliefs. You believe those things to be true. Whereas if there's a really charismatic figure in the media that you're going, oh wow, I'm really sort of persuaded by that. That sounds a lot like cultivation to me, right? It sort of maybe transitions a little bit into the question I wanted to ask, unless you had another follow-up that you wanted to throw at us.
I do want to segue back into kind of the original topic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll ask as a transitionary question specifically for you. Kind of in your experience, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm curious your historical background of it. In your experience, do we care more about politics now than we did 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I'm glad you put care in quotes, because it depends on what you mean by that. I mean, you said before that a lot of legacy media is pure entertainment. I think it's become sports at this point, right? And so I think that we care about it in that it scratches the same itch as following, really be dedicated to whatever your home team is and rooting against whatever their rivals are. I think that it definitely gets the blood up in that same way. That has certainly changed. I think that I don't know that I see people caring about it in terms of being informed about it, right? I don't think that I necessarily see that.
Okay. Here's maybe a better way of questioning. Do you think today a larger percentage of the population is engaged with politics than, maybe when you were growing up?
Certainly young people.
Okay.
Certainly young people. I think social media and the advent of political late night TV and political comedians, which really were not all that huge when I was growing up. It was really The Daily Show that kind of was the forerunner to that. It was not cool at all to be into politics when you were it really was not. I could not. I remember I went to a school with 36 kids I graduated with, and even though it was so small, there were a handful of kids who I just never really talked to. And I remember this one other student named Jose Loro, who like he didn't run with the same crowd. And one day during the 2000 election, we started talking to each other, and I was like, oh, you kind of think the same way that I do. I've never actually heard anyone else even talk about politics. I could not in a million years have told you what my best friends in the world thought about politics, because I don't think they did. Yeah. I don't think that they even. I don't think they could have told you who was running in that election, and that election famously went on for like 2 months. Right. Yeah. You know?
Bush v. Gore, right?
Bush v. Gore, yeah. So I think that has definitely changed. I think for sure the young people have started to get more into it. I think it's become more fashionable to be into politics.
For everyone, question on that, and this is going to be so like normatively like odd, so you can give your own attack at it, give your own reasoning. Do we think the fact that as Ted put it, more young people at the very least are more engaged in politics, do we think that's a good or bad thing? And again, that's so like subjective, so give your own reasoning.
I don't know if I really have an answer to that, but I do kind of want to talk about how social media has had such an impact on the way young people approach politics, because I know me personally, I feel like how I feel like when we're talking about controversial issues is that I immediately want to take a stance, and I know that's not what the UA Discourse Series is about, it's not what this podcast is supposed to be about, but I think that stems from people just assuming your political belief if you don't take a stance.
Yeah.
Like I feel like on social media, especially influencers, when like a hot topic comes up, if they don't say anything about it or they don't take a stance on the side, people are just like immediately go to cancel them. And I think that also comes from like cancel culture. I think Avery and Aylin just had a podcast about cancel culture.
Either they did or it's coming out soon, and by the time this is out, maybe it is out.
Whoops. Sorry if
that's good ad.
Leaked it, guys.
That's a good ad.
But yeah, no, I think that social media definitely has had such a profound effect on how young people approach politics and why young people are so involved in it now, because like people just assume that you believe something even if you don't, just because you haven't said anything about it.
When you say involved, do you mean like active on social media or actually like out being activists?
So a little bit of both. I think it just depends on the person. I think mostly on social media, but I know that a lot of social media like influencers or public figures also kind of have an activist background where they go and they donate or they go to protests and all that. But I think it's a little bit of both. I think regular people or more so just on social media. I would agree. Because they don't have like the money or resources to.
For sure. Or the free time.
Yeah.
It's a complicated question. I mean, like, engaged in politics, like, I think you put it very well when you were like, it's kind of turned into like a sports thing. Yeah. It's where like we have a team and we want our team to win the championship, right, and we hate the other team. And if that's our definition of engaged, just participating in that kind of like sports ideology, then I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. I think it tends to get better the closer you get to actual activism. Actually considering like, you know, the implications of policies or the philosophies, like the closer that young people are getting to actually engaging with those ideas, and not being so kind of maybe shallow about their emotional investment, like in a kind of sportsy way, the better it'll be. But right now I'm a little pessimistic, and I imagine that more often than not, young people tend to be on that more kind of surface level, kind of sports emotional investment level, which I don't think is the best.
Yeah.
I want to just clarify what I said before.
Sure.
So I don't mean to suggest that young people are superficially engaged in politics. I love all the students that I work with, and I think they are genuinely passionate. Right. I think that the older generations, I think we've been not very good stewards of those younger generations because we haven't, I think, properly pointed them in the right direction of what and how to care about this stuff. So I'll give a quick example. I remember, this baffled me. I remember when all the protests were going on, when the stuff was going on in the Middle East, in Gaza, and all the students on campus were demanding that President Robbins make a statement, like weigh in on this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I could not have told you the name of the president of my university when I like, who gives a shit what President Robbins like says about the Middle East. Like, it didn't matter to me, but that felt very meaningful. And I think it's partly because younger people live in a digital world right now, and so when Kit Kat, tweets, Black Lives Matter, like that's meaningful, but it's not, right? I mean, when we go, okay, well, I want to make sure that I support, Target because they are selling clothes for Pride Month. It's like, yeah, but it's also Target. They're also selling, stuff that's made in Indonesia by kids in sweatshops and fast fashion that's horrible for our environment. Like, why is it that like this culture war shit, like we, the older generations, are doing a bad job at really, really teaching the younger generations what actually matters and what has real substance, because we're making it feel like that, like messaging and the sort of like canned talking points are meaningful, and they're not. They're not. I mean, and that also has something to do with the other thing that I wanted to talk about. But go ahead. What were we gonna say?
Or Abby, did you have something else?
Well, I just wanted to say really quickly that I think that
does that sound true to you guys?
It sounds definitely true. I think that when Target comes out with Pride clothes and stuff, people that don't support the LGBTQ community are like, okay, well, I'm never going to shop at Target again. It gives people like a voice in a way that they feel empowered, but they're not actually doing anything.
Right.
Like Target is not going to be hurt by the fact that a few people aren't going to shop there anymore. Like, they are a huge business that gets a lot of money. And so I think that it just gives people a reason to like boycott or to feel like they have a voice, even if it's not really having a profound effect on anything. So
yeah, I agree. So, okay, so we've got like a really good foundation of, kind of what politics looks like now versus...
I want to hear Ted's question.
Yeah, can I get my question in?
Oh, yeah.
Just because we have 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get to it, because this answers, to my mind, this answers your original question, which was, how do we start talking about this stuff in the best possible way? And my easy one-sentence thesis that you guys have heard a million times, but this is where I want to get into, is let's stop thinking of things as red and blue, right? And so I guess I'll ask this question: why do the three of you think that the narrative of the right-left binary, that the whole entire world can be broken into just these two sides, which seems really reductive and simplistic to me? Why do you think that holds such purchase? Like, it's so effective. Like, so many people they're so convinced of that they don't even think that it's an argument. They just think that that's just the way of the world.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is so effective when I don't think that is even close to the actual real tension that's going on in this world?
I have a very chicken or the egg response. I think for since after Washington stepped down, I think we have been a two-party system throughout American history, and then I think that two-party system has influenced our culture. And at the same time, that culture has influenced the two-party system. So it's a chicken or the egg. It's just a feedback loop of, we kind of started out two-party system, and then that just sort of became the norm, and now that norm, enforces the system. So, and then I guess why that's effective in a media sphere, honestly, I think because it is the most watered down you can get from a viewer standpoint. Like, it is you take a complex topic, you have option A and option B. That's like the dumbest of downs you can get of a complex topic. And I think for viewers, especially in this more TikTok age of, focus, that is efficient for them. So that's my answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think people crave validation. They want something to root for. And that's why it's so binary right now. Like, I feel like it just puts it into simple terms for people. They're like, you don't like this side? Okay, then you're on this side. And then they just go really hard for that side. But I don't know. I think it's just because it would be, quote unquote, more complicated to have more ideas.
Yeah. And people don't want to work that hard.
Yeah.
They don't want to learn about it.
Well, that kind of builds into my answer, or part of it, I guess, is I think it's granted understandable why it is this way, but like a failure of education. Like, I think to myself, like, why is that like dichotomy like broken in my mind? Why do I see that there's more kind of nuance in there, and a lot of nuance counter?
Sorry, my nuance counter.
We need shot glasses to play the real game.
But
real.
I went to a high school for like gifted kids here in Tucson called UHS. I know, so special.
So important.
But nonetheless, it was like a bunch of students who are I guess more readily able to like consider like the complexities, as you were saying, and there was like some political history surrounding like whether or not the school should exist, that kind of thing. Whereas, and I wouldn't know because I didn't go to a different kind of high school, but I imagine that it is a far simpler education that, and it makes sense why it is, because like we're familiar with like a two-party system. It's much simpler to convey, you know, the broad strokes of what politics is through that lens, be it, you know, at home, be it in school. But if you don't have the opportunity to kind of break that while you're learning, and of course you wouldn't if like your teachers didn't have their opportunity and their teachers didn't have their opportunity, it's just going to be perpetually reinforced, and it'll take some kind of other events to break it, I think.
But I guess I'm just because that in some ways that feels almost like circular logic, right? Because we go, well, why do we sort of believe in this binary? And we go, well, because we have a two-party system. But then I go, okay, but why is the two-party system the two-party system that we have? In other words, like I don't think that Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris have a whole lot in common, even though they're technically listed on the same party, right? I don't think that like Donald Trump and you know, Jeb Bush have a whole lot in common, right? Like. But we've just decided that, and so if it has to be a binary, I guess this is always my question is, why is the binary not the powerful versus the powerless? Why is it not up, down? Why is it only right, left?
Class,
like it could so easily, like we could very easily have that reductive version where it is a binary, but I feel like it's largely people in power and corporate interests and institutions who are going, let's keep people punching sideways so that they don't punch up, right? So as long as they're yelling at each other, they're not going to like start pointing fingers at the people who are in power, and they're going to see the people who are in power as on their side. If we say that if we have it be left and right, and we could label it like that, that I think is the thing that really annoys me.
And I think to answer your kind of initial question of like, why is the binary left, right? I think like the most practical answer I can give is because that is the most efficient way to legislate, to create, you know, laws that like can actually be passed. So like the more kind of, I guess, perspectives that you deviate from, so like you mentioned, even within the left, right, there's fringe cases. The more you like actually separate that, the less you'll actually accomplish as a government. And then as far as your point, like why isn't it, you know, class? Why isn't it powerless? I mean, as we know, there's only a handful of people in the government that aren't, you know, wealthy millionaires, some billionaires, et cetera. So they would be essentially governing against their own interests.
But we elect them.
Yeah. Well, and I feel
they have the money to campaign.
Which sucks.
Well, I feel like it used to be like kind of punching up and down because there were the anti-federalists and the federalists, and they were all very like for and against rich people, you know, like, and but then again, the people that were in power were the ones that were rich, and they were the only people that were being elected. And so I think then it just had started to become, well, how can we as rich people make it so the poor people don't have a voice? We make them go against each other. And so that's, I think, what happened. And it's just always been like that. So
I
we
think
need to change.
A great example, have you guys seen, I forget the exact wording, I think it's like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
No, I have not seen that.
Missing out.
It's classic Frank Capra.
Yeah. It's just like, it's just this everyday dude that's like a senator. And I think we've turned to now our people in government are like celebrities, you know, depending on who it is, depending on who has the power, who has the voice, who's more active on social media. And there's a significant correlation of that and a decrease in quality in our political rhetoric, our general policy, I would even argue. So I guess from that, because we're running a little, we're running out of time, as concisely as you can state, what is kind of the path forward? I can hear Robert in the distance. I can hear Robert in the distance saying discourse.
Did Robert sit here?
Yes.
No wonder I can
We'll just wait for him to comment underneath the video.
It's just discourse, bro.
Repeat the question one more time. I'm sorry.
What's the way forward?
What's the way forward?
Learn and be serious about learning. If you care, truly care, and not like after your emotions have like kind of died down a bit, if you care, it would do yourself and everyone around you effort to do like actual as close to objective learning as you can do. And it doesn't have to be just about politics or social issues. It can be about literally anything. And the further you go into one field, I imagine that you'll broaden your understandings of patterns across all disciplines. And the more you do that, I think the higher tendency you'll have to reaching a kind of truth that can unify people.
Yeah, mine's a little more ambitious. I think if we must have a binary system, to definitely flip it, to instead of be left versus right, to take back the power and have your voice that actually matters and gets shit done. So, yeah.
I think to avoid sort of the binary thinking, I have a sort of an extreme answer. Like, learning is great, obviously, but there will always be distractions. So, like, straight up, delete social media. Don't watch, TV news, because it is all just a distraction from what is like actually going on and what actually matters. And we've gotten to the point where it's actually impossible to avoid that. So avoiding as many distractions as you can is, I think, probably the most safe position you can be to avoid that binary thinking. And I say that as someone who has and probably still is in the trap of binary thinking. Like
chronic Reddit, Twitter user.
Not Twitter. Do
Sorry,
as I say, not as I
Reddit.
do. But yeah, I mean, with all that being said, there is no foolproof answer to the question. But
I think mine would be, Abby said before, no one likes being wrong, and I think that my answer would be start to enjoy being wrong sometimes, right? Like think for a second before you have your sort of gut instinct reaction to whatever hot button issue is, and start to go, hey, maybe the way that I initially thought of that is not actually the right way to think, and maybe there are other ways of doing it, and really live in that moment and enjoy that moment instead of being resentful of it, and because that'll get your back up against the wall. And I think that sometimes it's good to be okay with that.
Yeah, and I guess that you just gave me a spark of inspiration. One last thing, and then Peyton, I'll let you kind of send us off. Within your sort of political ideology, don't gatekeep. So, like, as an example, say you're like really, really economically left, and like say you have a friend who's economically left, but maybe they're not a fan of like abortion, for example. You don't treat them as like, oh, you're just another conservative MAGA hat. Be like, no, to quote Peyton, there's nuance within the ideologies, and like that's what we need. So don't gatekeep your ideology. Be open to others.
Base.
That was beautiful.
Well, on that note,
What is base? Can you at long last? What is? You say this all the time.
I do. It's a niche political kind of term.
Almost.
I think it originated on either 4chan or Reddit. Basically, started in politics. If someone would make like a base political opinion, it would be one that's like well-founded in like facts and logic and like a good opinion to like hold and adhere to, be it just like objectively correct or like ideologically correct. And it started in the world of politics, but I just expand it to literally
says it
anything now.
all
It's
the
just
time.
internet talk.
You said
It's
it
just-
like
it's like-
14 times on this
It's
podcast.
like saying
Yeah.
slay or awesome or
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
It's like,
But mine's
yeah.
nuanced.
It sounds
Nuance.
like an insult. Like it sounds like basic. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
sorry, I say it so fast. It's based.
no, I know you're saying base,
But-
but it sounds so much like basic that it just feels like it feels like an insult.
Oh, my bad.
Quite the
Well, it
opposite.
is the opposite, in fact. But yeah, we have done it. We've completed episode
And
8
in a
of
nice,
season 3.
nice, concise amount of time.
Yeah, great conversation. Happy with how it went, and we will think of other topics.
Yes.
And I'll say, YouTube commenters, feel free to comment about how complex the conversation is, and feel free to bring in your own ideas about this stuff, as long as you're not just doing it along red, blue, right, left lines. As long as you're really thinking about it, that would be great. Yeah, we invite that. That would be wonderful.
That's what we do here.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much, Ted,
Yes,
for being
thanks,
on
Ted.
once again. We
Yeah.
appreciate you as always. Event, it'll be a debate with these two. One or both of us will be moderating, and then Aylin and Avery will be on the other side.
December 2nd.
December
7
2nd,
p.m.
7 p.m. Location. We are still going to bring the details to you soon.
Check our Instagram.
Check our Instagram.
Yeah, all of our socials.
But I've been Peyton,
I've been Logan.
I've been Abby.
I am Ted McLoof.
and we will see you all in the next one.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
guys.
Bye, guys.